Part 1. The Arena of Blood and Honor. Full explanation, 700 words. The story begins with grandeur and tradition on a galactic scale. Every generation, the warrior civilizations of the galaxy gather for a time-honored event known as the Grand Conclave of Torinox. This conclave isn't just ceremonial, it's a brutal showcase of power and heritage. The center stage of the conclave is the Rite of Lineage, a combat duel held to determine which bloodlines are strong enough to retain their honor and claim dominance over the lesser clans. It's not just about who wins, it's about legacy, fear, and reputation. This year's event takes place on Gethra Prime, a hostile, scorched world that suits the brutal nature of the combatants. Among those present is the galaxy-renowned warrior race known as the Brackery, whose culture revolves around conquest, power, and blood purity. They value tradition to the point of obsession, and their warrior rituals are treated with almost religious reverence. Standing proudly among the Bracari nobility is High Warlord Jurkar, a living legend and patriarch of a dominant lineage. His son Kalter is the next in line of Brash, heavily armored young warrior raised to believe in his own superiority. Kalter is the golden child of the conclave, strong, fearsome, and brutally efficient. Everyone expects him to win, the right without breaking a sweat. The crowd is already treating his victory as a foregone conclusion. Then the tension begins to build. Across the battlefield, a much smaller figure appears, a human girl named Rena Voss. She's only 18, lean, and quietly confident. Are no ornate armor pieces or grand titles to her name. She doesn't have a cheering squad or even a flag. Her only support is her mother, Sergeant Alia Voss, a former Terran soldier who stands quietly at the perimeter. Observing the crowd reacts to Rena's presence with a mix of confusion and ridicule. A human here? Participating in the rite of lineage? The very idea seems offensive to the Bracari and other Deathworld species in attendance. Humans are still considered new blood and unpredictable species that hasn't earned the right to stand among the legacy races. And this particular human doesn't even look like a warrior. She's unarmored, unassuming, small, female, soft. Someone mutters aloud. When Kalter sees her, his smug arrogance is on full display. He taunts Rena, questioning why a mere cub dares challenge someone like him. He expects a quick surrender. His words drip with contempt and entitlement. Rena says nothing. Her silence is unnerving. She doesn't flinch, doesn't speak, doesn't even react to the insult. She merely steps forward into the ring. And this is where the deeper dynamic of the story begins to take shape. What the galaxy sees as weakness, silence, stillness, lack of aggression Rena uses as her greatest strength. This is not a flashy human. She's not boastful or looking for glory. She's patient, calculating. Her lack of reaction isn't submission, it's control. Her mother, Alia, watching from the side, knows this well. Rena wasn't raised for spectacle. She wasn't raised like the Bracari heirs, who are groomed on arrogance and combat drills. She was raised on discipline, on human tactical philosophy, on practical surgical violence. The Arbitera, ceremonial, figure tasked with overseeing the duel signals the combatants. Kalter is grinning like a predator. Rena stands like a coiled spring. The crowd leans forward in anticipation, expecting a drawn-out battle, a display of strength, perhaps even a brutal finish. But that's not how humans fight. The duel hasn't started yet, but the momentum has already shifted in ways the alien observers can't perceive. Rena has measured her opponent. She's read his stance, his reach, his overconfidence. She's not waiting to prove anything. She's waiting for one moment. When the Arbiter says, "Begin," the story pivots into its defining tone, clinical and shocking efficiency. But that will unfold in Part 2. Part 1, then, is all about contrast. Between pomp and quiet, arrogance and readiness, tradition and adaptation. It establishes the stakes and lets the reader know what kind of galaxy this is. A place where lineage matters more than merit. And where humans are still underestimated. But Rena Voss is about to change that. Part 2. Pride walks on sand. Full explanation 700 words part 2 is where the confrontation officially begins and ends just as quickly. This chapter sets the stage for one of the most subversive moments in the story, where all the expectations, carefully built in part, are violently shattered in seconds. We open with Kalter stepping into the arena like a god among mortals. His movements are slow, exaggerated, and brimming with overconfidence. He's showboating for the crowd, lifting his massive glaive and basking in the deafening roars of approval from the Bracari. He carries the pride of his entire bloodline. On his shoulders and in his mind, this duel is a formality. Tradition he'll win, not a challenge he might lose. Kelter's behavior in the arena shows how deeply entitled he is. He believes his opponent, Rena Voss, is just a child. Worse, she's a human, a species many Bracari still consider second class. He's already convinced of his superiority. His remarks drip with arrogance as he mocks Rena, asking if she knows how to fight or if she plans to surrender once he mars her face. But the real strength of this part lies in Rena's silence. She doesn't respond to the taunts, doesn't posture, or even glare. Instead, she watches. Her eyes are locked on Kalter's movements, his stance, foot placement, shoulder tension. She analyzes him the way a surgeon examines anatomy. Not with emotion, but precision. This is where we see the core difference between Bracari and Terran combat philosophy. The Bracari fight with overwhelming force and theatrics. Humans, at least the Terran trained, fight with intention. Rena doesn't come to display power. She comes to end a threat. The Arbiter raises his hand and calls for readiness. Kalter grins like a predator. Rena nods once. Begin. Kalter charges immediately. An aggressive sweep of his glaive. Aim to end the fight in a single, devastating blow. It's the kind of move that has likely crushed dozens of opponents in past duels. But it has one fatal flaw. It assumes the enemy is slower, weaker, and scared. But Rena is none of those things. She doesn't block or retreat. Instead, she pivots, slipping just beyond the arc of his glaive and moves into him. Her movement is small, subtle, and nearly invisible to the untrained eye. Then comes the moment that defines the entire story. One elbow strike. Not a punch. Not a kick. It's just one precise downward snap of her elbow, targeting the inner shoulder joint of Kalter's leading arm. She doesn't need to overpower him just to hit the spot where anatomy fails under pressure, and it works. The shoulder dislocates with a sickening pop. Nerves rupture, ligaments tear. Kalter stumbles and screams, not just in pain but in shock. He's never been injured this quickly before. He's never been bested in less than a second. The crowd is silent. Even the other warlords don't understand what they've just seen. It was too fast, too quiet. Where was the spectacle? Where was the drawn-out clash? But that's the point. Rena didn't come to perform. She came to end the duel the moment it began. This was never a match, it was a problem to be solved with a single, clean solution. The efficiency of her move sends shockwaves through the arena. It's not just that she won, it's how she won. It goes against everything the Conclave values. Glory, strength, battle cries, scars earned from prolonged duels. But here's a girl from Earth who used a strike that looks like nothing. And reduced. The favored son of a galactic warlord to a sobbing heap. Rena's calm in the aftermath is chilling. She doesn't celebrate or gloat. She simply turns to the Arbiter, and when asked if she accepts her opponent's surrender, gives a haunting reply. I never needed it. This sentence drives the dagger even deeper into the pride of the Bracari. She didn't just beat him, she dismissed him. The duel to her was never in question. She was always in control. Watching from the sidelines, Alia Voss, her mother and former soldier, shows no surprise. This was how she trained her daughter not to win in the eyes of others, but to survive. To assess threats and neutralize them. With exactness. Result is a warrior who doesn't need glory to prove power. By the end of Part 2, the entire foundation of Bracari honor is shaking. The Golden Heir has been publicly humiliated by someone the galaxy called soft. And that humiliation has only just begun. Part 3. The Breaking of a Legacy. Full explanation, 700 words, Part 3 marks a shift in the story's tone from Duel to Aftermath, from silence to shock. The event that unfolded in Part Tarina Voss, disabling Kaltor in a single move now, sends ripples through the political, social, and cultural foundations of the galaxy's warrior elite. Kaltor, the heir of the Brakari High Warlord, is lying in the dust of the arena. His arm is erect, dislocated, tendons torn, nerve clusters ruptured. The injury isn't just painful, it's crippling. His body will heal with advanced medicine, but not in the ways that matter. In a warrior society like the Brakari, where every right is built on physical strength and combat dominance, permanent weakness is not just a medical issue, it's a stain on his legacy. The crowd, who moments ago roared with anticipation, is now silent, struggling to process what just happened. The medics rush in to stabilize Kaltor, but his screams aren't just from pain, they're from humiliation. He didn't lose in honorable combat, was surgically dismantled before the real fight even began. At the center of this storm stands Rena, untouched and unmoved. She does not revel in her victory. She doesn't posture or smile. She simply watches the chaos unfold with clinical detachment, as if she already knew how this would end. That's because she did. To Rena, this wasn't about winning. It was about making a point. She made it with devastating precision. Then comes the first open protest. High Warlord Jerkar himself rises. His fury is barely contained. From his point of view, this isn't just a personal loss. It's a public disgrace. His son has been reduced in front of every noble house. His family line, built over generations of war and domination, now seems fragile. Jerkar lashes out verbally, claiming the duel was unfair, says Rena's actions weren't in the spirit of the right. He accuses her of using a trap, not a duel. He demands her disqualification. His voice booms with authority, demanding that the honor of the Brakari bloodline be restored. But he forgets one critical thing. The entire galaxy saw what happened, and so did Rena's mother, Sergeant Alia. Voss, Alia steps forward, calmly, without fear. She doesn't match his rage with anger. Instead, she dismantles his pride with reason. She ended it in one strike. Your son overreached. She did not. This sentence slices deeper than any blade. Alia doesn't just defend her daughter. She lays the blame exactly where it belongs, on Kaltor's arrogance. It's not Rena's precision. The implication is clear. His injury wasn't the result of unfair tactics. It was the natural consequence of underestimating someone trained differently. Jerkar can't accept this. He screams again, this time, not as a warlord, but as a father, devastated and humiliated. He calls Rena a destroyer of legacies, and Alia responds with a cold, calm truth. Maybe next time, don't raise a boy to think legacy protects him. From reality, that line hits like a hammer. It's not just a burn, it's a condemnation of everything the Brakari stand for. The idea that bloodlines entitle you to victory, that tradition is a shield, that strength is inherited, not earned. Around them, the rest of the warrior elite are shaken. This isn't just about Rena and Kaltor anymore. It's a mirror held up to a crumbling tradition. The Brakari system rewards flash and heritage. But humanity, especially Earth's military, has evolved to prize results, survival, and adaptability. The arbiter, a neutral authority figure overseeing the right, says nothing. He does not disqualify Rena. He doesn't even reprimand her, because deep down, he knows what she did was within the rules. And more importantly, she showed exactly what it means to be dangerous in silence. As this realization spreads, a new kind of fear blooms in the arena, because what the galaxy just witnessed wasn't just an upset or an unexpected victory. It was proof. Proof that humans once dismissed as unpredictable, emotionally unstable, physically average could obliterate. Even the most sacred bloodlines with calm, calculated efficiency. That's what Part 3 is really about, the collapse of assumed superiority. It's the moment the Brakari, and perhaps the galaxy at large, understand that their old ways are vulnerable, that a new kind of warrior walks among them, and she doesn't shout, doesn't boast, and doesn't miss. She ends you in one move and walks away. Part 4. Echoes through the galaxy. Full explanation. 700 words. With Kalter defeated and his father's fury echoing across the arena, Part 4 expands the impact of Rina Voss's victory beyond the sand-strewn battlefield of Gethra Prime. Now the focus shifts from local shock to galactic consequence. This part of the story is about reverberation, how one precise act by one human girl begins to unravel centuries of belief, fear, and structure across the stars. The duel was recorded, as all duels in the rite of lineage are. High-definition feeds, multiple angles, biotelemetry, overlays everything that happened is now data. Ow! In the hours and days following the match, that data spreads like wildfire through the galaxy's military academies, war councils, and elite ruling families. The footage is played, analyzed, dissected, and slowed down frame by frame. It seems impossible. A girl barely of age by most species standards had taken down the heir to the Brakari War dynasty with a single, seemingly effortless strike. It wasn't brute strength, overwhelming firepower, or some exotic alien ability. It was training, precision, discipline. On the Brakari homeworld, war colleges attempt to break down her move. They bring in analysts, surgeons, and AI-assisted movement modeling. They try to simulate the exact pivot, the torque, the velocity, the angle of attack. The problem isn't just replicating, it's understanding it. The technique works because Rina understood the Brakari body better than the Brakari themselves. She struck where their anatomy failed. She weaponized biomechanics, not brute force. No war chant, no posturing, just an assessment and an execution. This realization frightens the old powers, because if Rina can do it, how many more humans can? And more importantly, what else have humans been training for in silence? Across the galaxy, cracks begin to form in the image of humanity as a chaotic, primitive species. Until now, most civilizations viewed Earth as a wild card, known for erratic behavior, flashes of brilliance, emotional outbursts, but not considered a strategic threat in elite dueling or traditional war rites. But Rina's victory doesn't look like luck. It looks deliberate. And that's terrifying. On the galactic net, the reaction becomes a storm. Memes, commentary videos, reaction footage. Millions of sentient species watch and rewatch the instant Kalter's shoulder dislocates. Some laugh, some recoil. Others go very, very quiet. A nickname starts circulating. The Voss method. Military theorists start attaching academic labels to her style. Kinetic neurological disruption, ultra-close quarters, nerve targeting, microaggression, mapping. But these fancy words can't change the core reality. Rina Voss ended a legacy in one move. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the Terran Defense Directorate says nothing. No press statements. No celebration. No commentary. Just silence. Which makes it worse, because now the galaxy suspects this wasn't an accident. Was the result of Terran training. Whispers follow. What kind of military breeds this mindset? How many more of them are out there? How many other soft humans have been hiding this level of lethality? In the neutral academies of the Harkin Species Collective, alien cadets begin adjusting their training regimens. They add modules on Terran movement patterns. Brakari military instructors, out of sheer desperation, begin hiring human consultants. At first, it's seen as humiliating. But slowly, it becomes clear. This isn't about pride anymore. It's about survival. Even the Zur Dominion, an isolationist race known for never hiring outsiders, begins requesting footage access. That alone is enough to signal the magnitude of what's happened. An entire galactic warrior caste system, built on tradition and legacy, has just been punctured by quiet human efficiency. And at the heart of this storm, Rina Voss, uninterested in fame, unbothered by legacy. It's unflinching in execution. She isn't seen again on the galactic stage, at least not immediately. She vanishes into Terran space. Just a name, just a myth, just a moment caught in high-resolution footage that sends shivers through admirals and generals alike. But her impact remains. From now on, Every warrior facing a human asks themselves. Part 5. The Girl, the Mother. The Legacy Reborn. Full explanation, 700 words, Part 5 brings the story full circle. It is both a quiet resolution and a powerful finale that reframes the entire narrative, not as a tale of dominance, but of legacy redefined. In the wake of Rena Voss's world-shaking victory, this part takes us away from the roaring crowds, the stunned nobility, and the broken Bracari dynasty, and brings us into the personal aftermath, a conversation between a daughter and the woman. Who made her? Rena and her mother, Sergeant Alia Voss, are aboard a Terran dropship, already leaving the blood-stained sands of Gethra Prime behind. The galaxy may be reeling, but for the two of them, the moment has passed. There is no celebration, no victory fanfare, no awards. Just the humming silence of an engine spinning toward home. Rena sits quietly. There's no glow of pride on her face. No emotion, really. She's calm, composed, still the same focused, silent operator she was in the arena. The world sees her now as a warrior of legend, a prodigy, maybe even a threat. But Rena is still herself. No titles, no theatrics, just the results. Alia, her. Mother breaks the silence with a simple truth. You did it. It isn't dramatic. It isn't exaggerated. It's precise, just like her daughter's strike. And in this simplicity lies the deeper emotional current of the entire story. Rena doesn't boast or downplay what happened. She simply says, I just did what you trained me to do. But Alia disagrees, not by dismissing Rena's skill, but by pointing out something deeper. She tells her, no, you chose when to do it. That matters more than training. This small exchange reveals everything. Alia didn't just raise a fighter. She raised someone with judgment, with restraint, with command of self. Rena could have shown off. She could have crushed her opponent in a brutal, drawn-out fight. But instead, she chose surgical finality. It wasn't about winning the crowd. It was about ending the threat. This section quietly flips the story's earlier themes on their head. Where the galaxy values ceremony and tradition, Rena embodies intention and control. Where Calter shouted, charged, and bled for glory, Rena walked in silent precision and left without a mark. Where others train for victory, she trains for decisiveness. Outside the dropship, though the galaxy is burning with reaction, not literally, but culturally, militarily, philosophically, her name's everywhere. Her image is on screens, in reports, in whispers. Yet the girl herself is not chasing the myth being built around her. That absence becomes part of her mystique. Back. On the networks and holofides, a meme circulates relentlessly. Soft, ask the warlord's son. It becomes the most repeated phrase across Warrior World message boards. It is bitter for some, triumphant for others, but undeniable to all. She did what no one thought possible, and she did it without fanfare. That's what makes her dangerous. That's what makes her unforgettable. For the Bracari and many other old guard powers, Rena is more than a symbol. She's a warning. That strength no longer comes from bloodlines, from titles, or from muscle-bound legacy. It comes from clarity. From being able to see the battle before it starts, it's from understanding the enemy's anatomy, movement, psychology, and then dismantling them before they understand what's happening. This is where the final part of the title comes into focus. She didn't just break his arm. She didn't just destroy his pride. She ended his legacy. Calter will never be warlord. It's not just because he lost, but because he lost in front of the galaxy. His weakness wasn't just physical, it was cultural. And his father's fury won't change that. The Bracari bloodline is no longer feared in the same way it once was. But what rises in its place is a new kind of legacy. The Voss legacy. Not one built on warlords or conquest, but on restraint, intelligence, and purpose. Alia Voss passed on her knowledge, not her rage. She didn't raise a daughter to dominate. She raised one to decide, to know when to act without hesitation. In a galaxy full of warriors who shout before they strike, Rena Voss is terrifying because she does neither. Part 5 closes not with noise, but with weight. The galaxy is changed not through war, but through a single, surgical moment. And now, every warrior, every commander, every noble family is wondering, are there more like her? Are there others raised in silence, watching, waiting? And if there are, what happens the next time a human decides not to walk away?